And now we're on Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis. And the Gemara says, El-Alab and Nazirus Meruba. We've rejected the possibility that we're talking about Nazirus Mu'etes, because in a 30-day Nazir, certainly it's in effect a stira of his days of Nazirus, because he's going to need 30 days of Gidul. So we must be talking here about a Nazirus Meruba, that he was makabel on himself a longer extended period of Nazirus in such a way that after his Giluach Tzaras, he still has another long period of Kiyum of his Nazirus, and he'll be able to fit in 30 days until he finishes the Nazirus. So he'll have a Gidul Seir, which facilitates his Giluach. And nevertheless, Uktani Maskelu Monamiyat, that he begins counting after his Yemei Safro, and it means that Yemei Safro are not integrated into the number of Yemei Nazirus, even in the case of Nazirus Meruba, and that's against Rav Chizda, because Rav Chizda said that in Nazirus Meruba, he can integrate the days of Mitzaras into his calculation Nazirus, as long as he has that 30-day balance, the Gidul Seir, that will allow him to do a Giluach. And the Gemara answers and deflects the kasha of Sharvia, who Mosiv Lo Mefarikla, he himself, Rav Sharvia, who asked the question or raised the objection of Chizda, he gave the answer. The Mishnah is talking about a case in Nazirus Bas Chamishim Yom. He accepted upon himself a Nazirus of 50 days. And when Rav Chizda spoke about Nazirus Mu'etes, what he meant to say was that he'll have, after his Tzaras, a period of time of Nazirus, which is Nazirus Mu'etes, and therefore okay, so let's go through the numbers here. The Yosef Esrim, okay, he has 50 days Nazirus, he already implemented 20 out of the 50. So he has 30 days left in order to fulfill his Nazirus and complete it. Visyalda Beit Tzoras. Now he became a Mitzorah. Is Megaleach Litzorato. He does his Giluach for his Tzoras. V'hada Yosef Talsin Yomin de Nazir. And now he completes his days of Nazirus. He's only left with 30 days that he needs to fulfill his Nazirus. And he'll have the 30 days of minimum of Gidul Seir in order to facilitate the Giluach. And the days that he observed before, the 20 days before he be contracted to Masaras, are not Nistarim, they're not completely negated. So it's like Gidul Seir, because he still has the 30-day period of Gidul Seir. And the din therefore is that it's not Sosa, the Yomim, the days that he calculated, that he counted before he became a Mitzorah. Now here we have to add another point. That Gam Ein Olim Lo Yemei Tzorato L'Cheshbon Yemei Nazirus. We cannot integrate and calculate the Yemei Tzoras into the Cheshbon of Kiyum Nazirus to fulfill the Nazirus that he was makabel on himself, because he needs Giluach, he needs, at least in order to achieve 30 days of Gidul Seir. And if you're going to calculate, then the days of Mitzorah, then he'll be missing the critical element of Seir Pera, of the shear of Pera. But if he was makabel on himself Nazirus Meruba, let's say a Nazirus where at the time that he contracted Tumah, he would still have a period of time that's longer and right than Shloshim Yom after his Tzaras, then Olim Lo Tzaras L'Cheshbon HaYomim Hod Fimal Shloshim Yom. And the days of his Tzaras will be integrated into the Cheshbon of the days that go beyond Shloshim Yom, above and beyond Shloshim Yom. For example, let's say he was makabel on himself in a Nazirus of 53 days. And after 20 days, he contracted Tumas Tzaras for 14 days. So in such a case, then part of the days of Taras will be Olam Lo Leminyan, which means the 3 days of his Taras will be integrated into the Yemei Nazirus. And there will be 11 days out of the 14 that are not Olam Lo. Masiv Rami Bar Choma. Okay, now this introduces a brand new sugya. The question is whether we have time to go through this. Let's see. Rami Bar Choma is going to raise an objection against Rav Chizda based on a Mishnah later on in Daf Nun Tesam at Beis regarding the case of someone who was makabel on himself to be a Nazir of Shloshim Yom, and he had a double suffix on the very first day of his Nazirus. What was the double suffix? Number one, Shayatame b'suffix. He didn't know whether he contracted Tumah. Like there was a body, he wasn't sure whether he came in contact with the body. And after his Tara, which will have to be Machmir in his suffix Tumah, then he needs Giluach, and he's going to have to begin his counting of the 30 days in the years from scratch. Now he has a second suffix. He has a suffix whether or not he became a Mitzora Muchlat. How could you have a suffix about whether you were Mitzora Muchlat? I mean, that's what the Kohen is going to announce. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. But first, we're talking about a person who's obligated to be Megaleach after he's Tar. And during that period of time, in which he was Makayim his Nazirus, he was a Suffolk Nazir Tahar or a Suffolk Nazir Tameh, because we don't know whether he contracted, whether he came in contact with the mess. Now, what is this business about a Suffolk Muchlat? And the Rosh gives 2 answers. Number one, he invokes a Yerushalmi that we're talking about Hichlit HaKohen Echad Mishnei B'nei Adam V'Shachesner. The Kohen declared that one of 2 people is a Mitzvah Muchla, but he doesn't remember which of the 2. And you might say, well, let's be Uke Gavra Cheskes Tara. Why don't we assume a Cheskes Tara for each one of them? And the Rosh gives the following answer. He says, Kevan Shasofik Hu Shema Kvar Huchsak L'Tuma. Since his status might have been that he was already muchlat, and once he's muchlat, which we don't know if he is, then his chazaka is the adarab. It's the contrary. It's the cheskes tumah. However, the second interpretation of our Gemara of Safek Tameh is we have a suffix in Parcha Bo Tsaras Mamish Oshurak Boek. Okay, so here we have to learn the Goyim, but Boek is what's called Lovan, Hanira B'Basar Adam Adom. So the question is, what is the status of a person who's a suffix muchla? I mean, the whole thing is a pella to me. I mean, how can you have a suffix muchla? I mean, the Kohen is not going to be machlit him if he's only in a state of suffix. And here we continue to Daf Nun Vav, and we'll just begin the Daf by saying that the Gemara is going to differentiate between 2 different dinim with regard to this double suffix. And all this is a Mishnah later on in Daf Nun Tes, which says that Ochel b'kodshim liachar shishim yom and shose b'yayin u'metami l'meisim lachar mea v'yesrim yom. So as far as counting Shloshim Yom, and then at the termination to do Giluach, so what happens here is that we have a third suffix. We have, first of all, we don't know if he was a Nazir Tor, and therefore he requires Giluach at the end of his Nazirs. We don't know, perhaps he was Nitma, and he's obligated to be Megalech in order to achieve Tara. And we have another suffix, maybe he was a Mitzora, and he's being Megalech the first Tiglachas, which is called the end of Yemei Gomro, and then he brings his Karbanos. So he's going to bring his Karbanos and then go back and count 30 extra days because of two Sveikas. Maybe he's a Nazir Tar, and maybe he was Nitztara and he had Saras, and he's obligated Giluach on a second round, which is called the Siyum Yemei Sifro, and then he'll bring his Karbanos. Afterwards, he's allowed to eat Kodshin, but he's still enjoined from drinking wine and being Metamil Mesim, because we still have a suffix that maybe the two Tiklochos are, which are a result of his being Mitzora, and now he's a Nazir. In other words, after an additional 30 days, which will make jack up the number to 90 days from the time of these Makabalas Nazirus, he's going to have a third Giluach. And that's either because of Nazir's Tara or because of Nazir's Tumah. And then he brings his Karbanos. Now, since there's still a suffix, maybe the two Tiglochos Rishonos, well, because he was in fact a Mitzora Muchlat, and the Shlish is the third Giluach we're requiring because he's a Nazir Tomei, he has to count 30 days, an additional 30 days of Nazir's Tara, and bring his Karban. After that, he's allowed to drink wine and be Mitami Lemes. All right, we're in the middle of a sugya here, but at least we made a little bit of Askola, and Be'ezer Hashem will continue this tomorrow. So have a great day and a great week.